Hello, my name is Richard Dunks with the Community Data Empowerment Project, and I'm here to talk about the concerns of open data. In previous videos, we've talked about what is open data, and we've talked about the benefits of open data. Now we want to talk about some of the concerns of open data. I want to start off with reminding you of our definition of open data that we're using from Open Knowledge International, which is open data is data that can be freely used, shared, and built on by anyone, anywhere, for any purpose. And as I've mentioned in previous videos, this can be any data from any source. It can be from the government, from nonprofit organizations, even for-profit companies. But our focus in the Community Data Empowerment Project is government open data. And when we talk about the concerns, one of the main concerns is privacy, protecting your privacy, your personal information. And that can be, of course, your driver's license number, your social security number, your address, but it can also be your face. There was a time not too long ago when companies were scraping mugshots from public records. So this is publicly available data, and they were posting it online along with personal details. Well, that was kind of problematic if you were applying for a job or going out on a date and someone was Googling your information, Googling your name, then a mugshot would come up. Maybe it was you, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was something serious, or maybe it was just a youthful indiscretion. Either way, this was problematic, and these companies would charge a fee to have these mugshots taken down, which is kind of the definition of extortion, which the courts and the federal government agreed with, and they forced these companies to take this information down. But it's a good illustration of when we're talking about open data, there can be unintended consequences. So this data was made public back when public disclosure meant it was printed in a book or maybe a newspaper or something like that. They didn't think about a time where you could put in a name and have all this information come back to you automatically with the press of a key. Another interesting kind of case when we're talking about privacy is the New York City taxi database. So there are 150 million taxi trips a year on average in New York City. And the Taxi and Limousine Commission made this data available, and they tried to anonymize the driver's license numbers for taxis. Well, they didn't do a particularly good job of this, and it was easy to then go back and identify which taxi cabs had taken which trips. And when you had paparazzi being able to go in and take photographs when, say, Bradley Cooper got into a cab, go into the database and find out where that cab went. And so you had the situation, kind of funny, where you had publicists having to explain why Bradley Cooper didn't tip his driver, because that was also part of public data. Another part of this, though, and a little bit darker, was being able to look in aggregate at this data and be able to say, okay, well, which drivers have a consistent pattern of pausing 5 times a day, which, if you're not aware, that's very indicative of someone being Muslim and a part of a daily ritual of devotion of stopping to pray 5 times during the day. And in looking at the pattern of life data with these drivers is be able to identify them as Muslim. Now, it's arguable whether this is a violation of privacy, but there's definitely a consideration of confidentiality and what this might do if anyone were to target Muslim cab drivers in New York City. So it's a good example of how these issues, when we talk about concerns, aren't rarely very clear cut. There's a lot of gray area that needs to be thought through. The other issue that's very important is reliability. So we're using this open data to understand how government works and how it operates, but often government isn't working with great data, reliable data. So they make this data available to the public, and you can see some of the same issues. In this case, there was an application that the government sponsored that would tell where fires were happening, and this is in Australia. But the problem was they were just taking data reports coming into their system without any vetting to say, okay, was this really a fire or was this not? So someone's having a bonfire in their backyard, someone thinks it's a raging inferno, ends up it's a controlled fire and no problem. Well, the other challenge here too, there's no way to remove that data, but also then, so a report that happened 6 hours ago when the fire's been put out was still in the system. So people couldn't rely on this application. Now you extend that to things like weather data, which we talked about as open data before, or transit data, things that are really important to have updated on a regular basis. But for policing data, right, the things we're talking about of our training programs, having accurate, reliable data is very important. What is the information on officers? Where was this location? What are all the factors and things that went into it? Having reliable data is very important. Also the issue of security. So a lot of things about our cities can be, information can be used and exploited by those who aren't doing well, aren't good actors in the space. We can think primarily about terrorists, or people who want to create mayhem or chaos by targeting our infrastructure. So that infrastructure is protected, such as our sewer systems, but there is a public need to understand, okay, what's going on with our sewer systems. In a city like New York, you have sewage systems that when they overflow will dump into the local waterways. Well, that's important information to know. How much is being discharged? Where is it being discharged? Is it near my kid's school? Is it near my home? Well, all of these factors are very important. So there's a balance to be struck to make sure that what's important, information is secured, but the public's right to know is also supported. So what this means for us, those of us who are working with open data, is that we must be mindful of the dangers of open data and use it responsibly, and not try and use it to expose personal details of anyone or sensitive infrastructure that could be out there available and just it's unknown. So it's important for us to be good actors in this process. Thank you very much for your time. Hope this information has been helpful. For more information on the Community Data Empowerment Project, please find our website, datafordallas.org, or email us at info@datafordallas.org, or find us on Facebook or Instagram. Thank you very much.